Rock on.
And we are back on the build phase. I'm Mr. Ben, and today I'm joined by Scott from Epic Loot Games to talk about the upcoming Versus Regional. Scott, welcome to the show.
Yeah, hi. How's it going?
I'm feeling great, and I'm really excited to eventually dig into talking about the event that you're going to play host to. But before we do that, every time I have somebody on
Yeah,
the
we'll
show
get
for
to
the
that.
first time, I like to give you an opportunity to kind of introduce yourself to the community. Now, I know you're a longtime member of the Versus community, but why don't you walk us through some of your background with games and what brought you to Versus 2 PCG?
Oh boy. Okay, that's potentially a long topic. Actually, before we roll into all that, can I quickly do shout outs?
Sure.
I want to get those out of the way at the top, just in case people get bored with listening to
All
us
right. Well, let's
ramble and they
start.
don't
What
stick
would you
around
like
till
to
the end.
plug, promote, or shout out here at the top of the show?
Well, it's not about plugging anything. I just want to shout out the Buckeye League guys, the Team Buckeye guys, because it's really David Robbins, Roland Christie, and Earl Teetsort who really are the driving force behind everything. They organize, the online Buckeye League. Um, it's really their ideas that led into the side events that we're doing. They're the ones that have been really doing these draft events, as you know, with the online Buckeye League and the free for all stuff. Like they're like gung ho about those formats. And so, so I've been working with David a lot to sort of come up with the formats for the side events for the regional. So I just wanted to shout out those guys, and also tertiary kind of to them, I guess, is also Keebler, who people probably know as Sean Powell. Some people know as Sean Powell, but we call him Keebler, um, because he does like the intros. He does video editing. He's the guy that is kind of the creative, artistic person behind those elements of what you see on the Buckeye League stuff. So anyway, I just want to shout out those guys because without them, none of this would be happening. So just wanted to get that on
And
on the
they're
top.
awesome guys on top of
Yeah,
all the accolades you just listed.
yeah. All right, so refresh my memory again. What was your question?
Okay,
Introduce
so
myself.
what was your kind of background in your relationship with games, and what kind of brought you into Versus 2 PCG?
Well, okay, so big topic. I mean, you could go all the way back to when I was 5 years old and my dad taught me to play chess. So, I mean, that was probably my first introduction to games. If you want to talk about hobby games, I started playing Dungeons and Dragons in 1978 or 79 when I was a wee little kid. I'm that old, yeah. Uh, so after Dungeons and Dragons, I primarily played a lot of role playing games. I kind of got into board gaming, over time. I mean, I don't count Monopoly and family games like that. I'm talking about hobby board games. Um, and then, nowadays I play everything. I mean, over the years, I've picked up everything. I play Warhammer and miniatures games. I play obviously a lot of role playing games, a lot of card games. I was at Gen Con in '93 when Magic first came out. I got heavy into Magic when it first came out. Probably played it really heavily for about, I don't know, 10 or 12 years, something like that. Actually, I kind of got out of Magic when the original Versus came out. That was when I sold my Magic collection and decided I'm never playing that game again because
Me
Versus is
too.
way better. Yeah. So I was into Versus from the beginning, in 2003 or 2004. I forget exactly which year it came out, one of those. Um, I got on the pro circuit, met Keebler and those guys. Not all the Buckeye League guys, some of them came in with the new game, but Keebler and I and some of the other guys were involved in the original Versus game and got on the pro circuit. And by the way, this is an interesting side note. Keebler owned a store back then, which was our home store in the original Versus days. He owned a game store called the Howlin' Wolf. Um, so that was kind of our home base back then. Um, then obviously Versus ended. Then I opened a store. But I shouldn't say I, myself and my partners. We opened up Epic Loot in 2011, and then the new Versus came out, and obviously, I got right in on the ground floor because I loved the original game. So um, I also love this game.
So, as somebody who came from the old Versus system, we have a number of times over the years talked about on the show the maybe complicated relationship that can kind of
Oh yeah,
create going from old Versus coming into the new game. Um, t-
yeah.
Talk me through your like, how did you feel about the end of old Versus, and when new Versus came out, did you jump right into it? Was there some hesitancy? Like, just what was your headspace surrounding the two different games, and kind of how Upper Deck handled that?
A lot of these. times when games fail or are canceled or whatever, I because I'm in the industry, I sort of see things from both points of view. I see it from the point of view of a gamer and a consumer who's annoyed or frustrated when something that they love, the rug is pulled out from under them. But then I also look at it from the point of view of the business, owners, um, who are just looking at the bottom line. And if the game's not making money, they can't continue to publish it. Like nobody's going to continue to make a game that they're losing money on. That's just basic. Um, I don't know if are you into MMOs at all? Have you ever heard of a game called City of Heroes?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So similar situation with that. That game, people that played it loved it. It got canceled in 2012, I think. Um, Similar kind of thing happened as with what happened with Versus. A lot of the people that loved the game started sort of going on this rampage against NCSoft and saying that they were evil and why couldn't they keep the servers running and so on and so forth. But if you look at the subscription numbers that game had, they were on a downward trajectory for years. They peaked at about 140,000 subscribers, and then the numbers kept dropping and dropping and dropping. And after so long, they don't have the money to keep paying the development staff, the server space. The server space is, I don't know if people realize that it's actually quite expensive. Um, anyway, so when that game was canceled, and same as when Versus was canceled, I sort of understood the point of view of the publishers of those games and why they canceled them. In the case of Versus, let's get back to Versus. So this is something I've had this debate with members of the old Versus community a lot. People just can't wrap their heads around, Upper Deck canceling the game and thinking that Upper Deck is, I mean, for lack of a better word, I've seen people say it, evil, right? And what happened with Versus, and this is something Upper Deck doesn't ever really admit to either. They came out with the World of Warcraft trading card game. As if you were involved in the original game, you probably remember that, right? You played the original game as well, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They came out with the WoW trading card game, and the WoW trading card game organized play system. They ran them at the same time consecutively, what's the word? At the same time, anyway, as the Versus events. So you would go to Gen Con, there would be a Versus Pro Tour or Pro Circuit event and a WoW, World Championship event, literally on the same days and in the same time slots. So you couldn't play in both. You had to choose one or the other. So WoW had the same prize money payout as Versus. And on top of that, they had these basically like a lottery card, those scratch off cards, like the Spectral Tiger, I remember, was selling for like $1,000. Yeah, there were mounts, and I think the Spectral Tiger was a mount. Anyway, the point is, because so many people were playing the WoW MMO, there were like 10 million people playing the MMO at that time, and they weren't all playing the card game. So the people that were playing the card game would get these scratch-off cards and go sell them on eBay and get like $1,000 for a Spectral Tiger card. So that became a lottery on top of the money that you could win playing the game, which again was exactly the same as Versus. So what happened is half of their pro players jumped ship and quit Versus to go play WoW. And that led to the first start of the decline. Then they went back to DC and Marvel to renegotiate their licensing agreements because the game wasn't selling as well anymore. They couldn't afford the licensing agreement they had originally had in place because they originally thought Versus was going to be as big as Magic, right? They thought that they had a game that was of that quality and would have that big of a following and would sell as much as Magic did. It probably did for the first year or two. I don't know what the numbers were, but it sold really well. It hit the ground running. But after a couple of years, they did this thing with WoW, and then their numbers started dropping because literally half their player base quit to play the other game. So they went back. DC said, no, this is what our license is worth. Take it or leave it. That's how they lost the DC license. Then after losing the DC license, more players quit because now basically half their player base, the stuff that they loved, the IP that they loved, was no longer there. So they lost another, half of the remaining player base. So now they're down to like a quarter of their original player base. The game is not selling anywhere near what they, projected and what they needed to sort of keep it going. That's another thing people don't realize. CCGs have a much higher requirement for the number of sales to keep it going. because they have to do bigger print runs in order to do the sorting for, to have enough cards to produce rares, uncommons and commons, and now mythic rares and all that stuff. You have to have giant print runs of cards to make that sorting mechanism possible. With our game, right, with a living card game, or a 2PCG as we call it,
Yeah.
they don't have to do that. They can literally just run off, I don't know, 5,000 copies of it, because every pack comes with the exact same cards. So they don't have to have a minimum million cards that they print to meet the requirements of the different rarity levels. So that's why the new Versus has lasted, even though I guarantee you it's not selling as well as the original Versus did. The original Versus had bigger requirements to keep it going than this one does. Which is also why I'm hopeful that this game is going to go on for a long, long time to come.
Mostly, I was just kind of trying to get your reflections as being a player who enjoyed both versions of Versus, and
Yeah.
like what your
Oh,
journey
yeah.
was from
Okay.
one to the other. But all of this insight into the industry, it's a little far afield from the event we want to talk about eventually. But I find this
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
stuff, as a fan of both
Yeah.
games, this is
Feel
incredibly
free to edit all
interesting
this
to me.
out. If we go on for an hour and you're like, man, Scott went off on a ramble, let's just cut that. No
I
problem.
mean, if you've listened
But
to
let
my
me get,
show, you know I'm a fan of rambling. So,
yeah. So, but let me get back to your original question. So, in terms of my personal feelings about the games and the differences between them, when the new Versus came out, I will admit I was a little bit bummed out about a few things, and I'll let you know what they are. First of all, I didn't like the fact that they introduced the colors for superpowers. That to me felt like something that they were adding to make it a little more like Magic, right? We could still pay whatever resource, every resource was just a resource for recruiting purposes, but now they've introduced this color coding resource to play certain superpowers, and it introduced a luck factor that I wasn't crazy about. This is another thing that goes into game design industry stuff, but if you paid attention to what they were saying, Ben and
Danny.
I'm drawing a blank here. Danny, right. If you paid attention to what they were saying that they wanted to introduce in the new Versus, they deliberately were putting in more luck. They talked about, and Upper Deck has talked about in the past, that the reason they felt that the original Versus failed, which I've already laid out my reasons why I think it failed, so I don't think this is correct. But Upper Deck's reasoning, or at least publicly what they've said, is that the game, because the game had so little variance. In other words, the deck that you built played very consistently in that game, right? There was a lot of search in that game. There was no having to match color resources for things. Every card you played was a resource. Also, every card you played did something, right? Every card you put in your resource row did something. Locations and ongoing plot twists, and even regular plot twists you could play from your resource row. So that game played extremely consistently. And what they said is that led to a situation or a meta where the good players always won, or practically always. I mean, there's still some variance in terms of what you draw, right? But it has way less variance than Magic or than our current Versus game does. So it led to new players trying to adopt the game getting squashed repeatedly. They would come in and try the game, and somebody who was more experienced would just crush them like a bug, and it would ruin their enthusiasm for the game. And so they felt they couldn't get new players to pick the game up after it had been out for a year or whatever. And they felt like that's why the game failed. So now with the new Versus, they were like, we want to introduce an element, add a little more variance, a little more of a luck factor, so that if you're new, you can come in and get lucky and beat a pro, right? Because it gives you that feeling that, ooh, I could be good at this game. Even if I know nothing about it, I can get lucky and I can win. And then people have that feel good and they want to keep playing, and that gets new people into the game, or it keeps them in the game, right? As opposed to they try it once and they go, this game's horrible, I quit. So anyway, when the new game came, I wasn't crazy about that because I was used to the old game. I loved the fact that there was very little variance. I loved deck building and tinkering with it and building an engine that you knew was going to be really reliable. Um, so that I wasn't crazy about, but I was like, but okay, I see what they're doing. I understand the reasoning for doing it. I'm going to stick with it. I also wasn't crazy about the fact, like I just said, that you put stuff in your resource row and it basically did nothing other than provide a color resource for a superpower. I sort of bitched about that for the first 2 or 3 years of the game. I was one of those people who was always, on the Discords and Facebook and stuff saying, man, I wish they would introduce locations that did something, or plot twists that we could play from the resource row and stuff like that. And they finally have been introducing that stuff over the last couple of years. So I've gotten more and more overjoyed with the game as it's evolved. In the beginning, I had some reservations about it, but I wasn't like, one of those, I don't know how to put this delicately. I wasn't one of the people from the old community that just poo-pooed the game and wasn't going to give it a shot. There are those people.
And they're entitled to be grumpy.
You know,
That's okay. I wish they would give the new game a try. Like in the
said
state
I
that
don't know
it's
how
at
to. I don't
now.
want to say this. Me too, because I think if they tried it, they'd probably be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
My sort of feelings about the evolution of the game, I'm super thrilled with where it is now. I think it's just gotten better and better, over the years that it's been out. I think Ben and Danny are killing it. I think the flavor that they inject into the game is like top notch. The game mechanics that they're introducing, again, I think really make me happy because they're adding a lot more variety in terms of what you can do with your cards. Couldn't be happier.
Yeah, I a lot of your journey resonates really strongly with me. I remember having really strong reactions about what do you mean I can't play plot twists from my resource row? Uh, but despite
Yeah.
my early misgivings, they have taken this game to a great place where a lot of the things I wanted and appreciated about World Versus did eventually make it in. So, yeah, I'm with you
Yep.
both, kind of the whole way. I agree with basically all of that.
Pretty sure I remember you and I commiserating about, or sort of being happy about. I think when Oscorp came out, maybe that was the location, or so it was either that or I remember there being a conversation on the Discord about this is so cool. This is what I've been waiting for all this time, and I think you and I were both cheerleading that.
Yeah,
Anyway,
locations that do more,
good.
I think is a good place for the game to be moving in. Okay, so
Yeah.
before we get into the details of the event that brought us here today, I want to get the most important piece of information up front. Where and when do people need to show up for the events that we're about to break down here in a second?
So we're in Centerville, Ohio. It's a suburb of Dayton, Ohio, which is close to Cincinnati, Ohio. Somebody asked me just today, as a matter of fact, if they should fly, which airport should they fly into? You should probably fly into, if you're flying, you should probably fly into Dayton. We're about a 40-minute drive from the Dayton airport. We're just south of Dayton suburb, and the airport is north of Dayton. So you got to go through Dayton. But if you fly into the Cincinnati airport is technically in Kentucky. It's across the border in a suburb that's in Kentucky. So if you fly into the Cincinnati airport, you have to cross the state border, drive all the way through Cincinnati. It ends up being about an hour and 15-minute drive, even though technically we're much closer. We're only a 40-minute drive from Cincinnati, but you got to go all the way through Cincinnati into Kentucky to the airport. So unless airfare is way cheaper to Cincinnati, you're probably better off flying into Dayton. Anyway,
Good tip.
so
Yeah.
that's where, yeah. Dates. It's September 15 to 17, Friday through Saturday. The regional is on Saturday, the 16th. The side events are Friday and Sunday. And I just got confirmation that we will have League there. So League will be running all weekend, same as it was at Gen Con, except Senator Kelly will not be a League promo card. Senator Kelly is the regional promo card. So it's a participation card. Everybody gets a Senator Kelly. And then the League promos are, all 12. For those of you that were at Gen Con, you know already. But if you weren't at Gen Con, it's all 12 of the Alpha Combat Unit Sentinels, and Mutant Control Act, and a training ground. So
So
those will be available if you play League.
if someone is listening to this that has not played League before, can you give us a breakdown on which expansion they're going to need to purchase and how League works?
Yeah, good call. Okay, so the way League works, you buy a pack, a recent pack. In our case, it can be, well, I should say with a caveat, if Frightful Foes is out by then, which hopefully it will be, fingers crossed. I mean, we don't have a release date for it yet, but hopefully if they're sticking to roughly a monthly schedule now. If Frightful Foes comes out, you can buy the two Cosmic Power packs that are out at that time, the Fractured Families and Frightful Foes. That will count as a league entry, or you can buy one of the big boxes. Unfortunately, the AEW box is sold out everywhere. I've checked with all our distributors. It's completely sold out, so I can't restock that one. But you can get the Boys or House of X or Mortal Kombat. Any of those 3 boxes will also get you into League. So you get one of those. That gets you into League. You play 7 games with the cards from that box. These are just casual games. They're not, it's not like the regional. There's no big money or anything. But every round you play, you get one of the promo cards. You just pick one, and you get that for 6 games. And then the 7th game, you get a playmat. I forgot to mention that. There's also a Sentinel playmat. If you want all of those cards, because that's 14 cards, right? You're only going to get 6 the first playthrough. You have to buy another pack and play another league entry round of 7 games. And each game you'll get a card. And then on the 7th game, you'll get the final 2 cards. So that's how League works. The same way they did it at Gen Con. The only difference is this. Well, I should say the 2 differences. One is there's no Senator Kelly, but the big difference is at Gen Con, since Upper Deck was running it, and they had plenty supplies of all of those promo cards on hand, you could pick whatever card you wanted every round, and you could even pick multiples of the same card. So you could go, I want to get my 4 training grounds, right? And just play 4 league games, bam, 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 get 4 training grounds. We won't be able to do that because the way they send the prize product is we get 1 league pack or league kit per player that's registered. And those league kits come with 1 of every card. So we can't have you taking multiple cards because then other people won't get the training grounds or the mutant control axe. Presumably nobody's going to want multiples of the Sentinels because they're all 1 of a kind. But anyway, you get my point. So you get 1 card every round you play of your choice, but you can't pick the same card twice. So that's
Seems
the
fair.
one thing that'll be different. Yeah, that's the one difference between how they did it at Gen Con. Oh, let me mention this too. This is kind of important. Because as I just mentioned, we get 1 league kit per player that's going to be at the event. Right now, what we're expecting is 24 players. That's what I've talked with Upper Deck about. That's how many prize support kits they're going to send us, basically, enough for 24 players. We already have 15 people signed up, pre-sold tickets for the event. So if you're planning to come, I really recommend that you get on our website, follow the link. Hopefully, Mr. Ben will put the link in this description for this
It'll be in
video
the
when it
show
goes
notes.
up.
Absolutely.
Cool. Go to the link, buy your ticket, and contact me personally and let me know which box you want for League. And if you're going to sign up for League twice, which 2 boxes you want, or 3 if you want the Fractured Family and Frightful Foes. Because that's another thing I got to make sure we have enough in stock, for everybody that wants to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm placing those orders now, and I'm also letting Veets know if we exceed 24 people, which is starting to look like it's possible because we've already pre-sold 15 tickets, then I need to let him know to send even more prize support. If that doesn't happen, let's say everybody waits till the last minute to show, like if you drive here, people have been asking me, Scott, what's the deadline to buy my ticket for the event? Technically, there is no deadline. You could just show up Saturday morning, right? And pay the $20 and play in the regional. But if you do that, there probably won't be enough prize product to go around. So then you're going to have to wait for the Upper Deck to send it in the mail, and who knows when that happens. So if you want to make sure that there's enough prize product for all the players, make sure you sign up early and let me know what you want, which packs you want for League. That way we can make sure to get enough prize support.
You didn't mention Mortal Kombat specifically. I'm assuming that box would also qualify.
Did I not?
I think you said
sorry.
House of X, Boys, and the other 2,
and
not AEW, correct?
Not AEW because it's sold out everywhere. I'd restock it if I could, but all the distributors
That's kind of
are
cool,
out of it.
right? That we
is,
completely sold out an expansion. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Funny. Okay. Talking about our personal reactions to things. That's one of those sets that I personally was not excited about. I'm not a wrestling fan. So when they announced that, I was like, wrestling, who cares? Does it really fit with the flavor of, superheroes and, supernatural beings like in, Buffy and stuff? Those I can see, mixing because supernatural superpowers. But then I was like, wrestlers are just normal dudes in tights, right? So I sort of felt like it didn't fit. But, I got to say, who cares? I mean, my personal feelings about whether or not the flavor matches or not are pointless when it's selling like crazy and it's getting new people into the game.
Yeah,
That's super cool.
yeah.
So
It,
yeah, I've totally come around on the AEW thing. And plus the cards are cool. I mean, they do cool things. So
yeah.
I don't get the references, but they do cool things. So I'm enjoying deck building with them.
It has been a little silly when like my wife walks through the kitchen and I have some like wrestling video playing on my phone while I'm working on it. I'm like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about what I'm watching.
Right.
It's like this
It's
is
for
research
versus, I
for a
promise.
show.
Right.
Okay, so that sums up League. I think that covers all the questions there.
Yeah.
Let's move into Friday. So we talked about side events on Friday. What's going on
Yeah.
Friday?
Friday is the Buckeye draft event. This is something, like I was saying earlier, the Team Buckeye guys came up with. They thought, what if we do a draft? Right. And they started this whole drafting thing. And I'm not talking about old school, CCG drafting where you draft cards out of a booster pack, right? We've tried to implement that in Versus too. People have done cube drafts and stuff. But they decided to do like a sports league draft where you draft your main characters that you're going to play. So you don't have everybody playing the same thing. You literally get one. Everybody has a different main character because there's only one of each character in the draft pool. Sometimes they've had it where you have two copies of every MC in the draft pool if there's not enough characters in the draft pool for everybody to get one, right? Like if the draft pool is, say, only 20 MCs and you have like 15 players, you probably need to say, okay, you can play twice. We can
Hmm.
we can have characters drafted twice. So for what we're doing, we're sort of taking that and putting a local spin on it. We're going to just lay out all the MCs that are in the draft pool on a table and say, here's the draft pool. Like we'll provide the MCs. You bring your own deck. We provide the MCs. We're going to lay them all out, and we decided the draft pool for the MCs is going to be all the main characters that are from the following four teams: X-Men, Brotherhood, Fantastic, and Frightful. Right. So we figure that gets sort of all the teams that have gotten new characters lately. Um, so that's, I think we figured it out. It's 56 characters right now. Assuming if Frightful Foes comes out in time, it'll be a little over 60 probably. I don't know exactly how many MCs there are in that box. But anyway, so that gives us enough MCs to have 20 players and still have 3 times the number of MCs that we have players. So we think that's a good number. The first round of the draft is going to be everybody picks one of those MCs to veto, and then nobody can draft that one. So that like the really crazy powerful ones, like I'm guessing Uatu, Franklin Richards, Reed Richards, probably all those get vetoed in the first round. And then we randomize the draft order again, and then we actually draft the MCs we're going to be playing. And then that's the MC that you're stuck with for the draft, for the event. What we're recommending, because you don't necessarily know which MC you're going to play, right? We recommend you bring several decks. So plan for playing different MCs, build a deck that you would play for this MC and your second choice and your third choice. And maybe bring a sideboard of some cards that you just figure, well, whatever if I get stuck with something that's not even in my top 3, I know I can stick these cards in and make something decent. Once the draft is complete, we'll do a half an hour for deck construction. So again, the more prepared you are, the better. Don't bring your entire collection and think you're just going to build a deck from scratch in 30 minutes, unless you're a super genius. So come prepared. Bring like a B, and a C choice, and then maybe some sideboard cards that you can figure out how to mix with whatever MC you end up with. So that's the draft event in a nutshell. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, that's
I think it's gonna
cool.
be fun.
I think the
Yeah.
likelihood that like the top third best characters all get deleted and this ends up being like tier two and like tier three characters fighting it out is going to create some unique matchups that we probably haven't seen in competitive environments before. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, if so, for anybody out there that has not participated in any of the Buckeye League online stuff that Dave and Earl and Rolland run, this draft idea they came up with is kind of brilliant because it really does shake up the meta. Like, you're going to see characters that you otherwise would never see played. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it really has invigorated tournament play. I mean, again, so far it's just been the online thing, but we kind of want to turn it into a side event at an actual event. Excuse me, and see how people like it. So, oh, I should probably also mention if you're familiar with the online thing that they do, they keep a ranking system, a
Hmm.
Buckeye ranking system, so that in future drafts, there's always a draft order, and it's based on the opposite of your ranking. So if you're ranked super low, like some people, you get first draft pick. And if you're ranked really high, like say Mitch, I can't remember who's at the top of the heap right now in terms of their ranking, you get the last draft pick. So it's just like a sports league. If you have the worst record from one season, you get the first draft pick in the next season. So that's another kind of fun thing they do. That's not going to play here, obviously, live. We're just going to randomize the draft picks. So it'll be random draft order for the veto round, and then a new random draft order for the actual draft picks. So that's how we're
Great.
doing it. Should be fun.
Well, and I will also heap some praise on Buckeye League. I haven't participated in a while, but every time I have, it's been a great time and a very well run event. So shout out to those guys.
Yeah.
I guess multiple
Yeah, those
times
guys
throughout
are
the course of the
geniuses.
show.
I'm just lucky to know them.
Yeah, I
Anyway.
mean that's how I feel about most of my friends too. I actually a lot of
Yeah.
people I met through this very game. It's like wow.
Yeah. I agree.
Um, okay, so we're gonna skip over Saturday because I want to talk about the regional last, and we'll go straight to
Okay.
Sunday. So what do you have cooking for us on Sunday?
Sunday's a free for all event. This is another event that the Buckeyes, have been really doing lately. Um, it's going to be 3 or 4 players per table. Obviously, depends how many players we get, but we're going to divide the players up as equally as possible. I should mention for the draft tournament, I almost forgot to mention this. There's only 2 banned characters, so it's multiverse format. Anything goes. Just follow normal deck construction rules, right? So you can't mix photo and illustrated unless you have a card like Uatu who says you can.
Unless you can,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. But we are banning 2 cards just because we think, or 3. Wait a minute. I believe the banned cards are Senator Kelly, Machine, and Maximus. That's it. Yeah. Senator Kelly, Maximus, and Machine, the invention machine, are all banned for the draft event. So don't bring those, but bring anything else you want. And then for Sunday, we also have a couple of banned things for Sunday. So these are just what we decided should be banned. We're not following the modern format. We're not following incursion. All right. So for Sunday's event, the free for all, we only have 2 banned cards, and it's Dark Phoenix MC and the new Loki MC from WandaVision. So those are banned because if you look at those cards, they say every other player X. So like Dark Phoenix destroys every other player's face down locations. And new Loki says every other player discards X number of cards when he uses his level 3 power, which is just ridiculous. I mean, in a multiplayer game, that's just too good. Like
Yeah.
everybody would just play those 2 characters if they were available. So we're banning those 2. Everything else goes. And people are going to say, well, what about this broken thing? What about that broken thing? None of the other things are as broken as those 2 things. And what we have found, we've been playing a lot of free for all. What we have found is if you bring something like, I'll just throw out Valkyrie as an example, MCU Valkyrie. You bring something like that, everyone's going to gang up on you. So bring something like that if you want to. Knock yourself out. See how it goes. Anyway, so the free for all event is going to be 3 or 4 players per table. We'll divvy everybody up. We're also going to separate teams. So just so everybody knows, if you come with your buddies and you have sort of a game plan, like, hey, let's all play together, and yeah, that's not going to work because we're going to separate you. So uh, anyway, we'll separate the teams, and then after that, the seating is going to be done by your ranking and all that stuff. So if you and somebody you came with both win at your tables, then you could be at a table together in a future round. That's possible. We won't be able to do anything about that, but yeah, so the free for all should be a lot of fun. It's probably going to be, we're going to do 80-minute rounds for that because you have 3 or 4 players per table. It's going to take longer than a normal game. So that's why that one's on Sunday, because that event's probably going to take a little longer than the draft event. I should also mention start times. The draft event Friday is going to start at 4 p.m. So, Probably some of the people coming for the weekend won't be able to make it for that, but we didn't want to start it too late because then we'll be here really late Friday night, and everybody's gonna be exhausted Saturday morning for the regional. So we were like, we
Yeah.
kind of want to wrap up the Friday event by 9 p.m., or so. So we decided 4 p.m. was the latest we could start it and still end at a reasonable time. Um, the Sunday event is going to start at 11:30 a.m. So that one might go. I mean, it's probably depending on how many people are there, but it's probably only going to be 3 rounds, and then just one playoff table. Because you got 4 players at that playoff table. Um, but they're 80-minute rounds, so that one could go till 4 in the afternoon or something like that. So don't plan to fly out too early if you're flying. Um, I
It
think.
seems like the bans in both the free for all and the draft event are just kind of like, hey, let's take the stuff that feels the worst and not play with that, but keep it
Yeah,
as much as we can of everything else. Is that pretty fair?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I personally am a big fan of the modern format. I think those guys, the Modern Council, are nailing it in terms of like.
Yeah.
I know there's this whole and I know there's going to be a podcast soon about the differences between modern and incursion and the different goals of them. So I know there's different goals. I'm not trying to say one's better than the other. I like incursion also, but I really really love the philosophy of the Modern Council, that they're taking a surgical approach. They're finding the problem cards, the ones that enable these really broken things, right? And just pulling them out of the format, which I think is great. So that's sort of the approach we took with these 2 events. We just said, let's just ban the like really problematic cards that are just gonna, make the game unfun or the event unfun. Or like I said, like if we allowed Loki and Dark Phoenix in the free for all, it'd just be basically 8 players playing one and 8 players playing the other, and that would be the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's no fun. We want to see a variety of characters played. So anyway, yeah. So yeah, that's what the thought
Well, those are
process
the
was.
fun bands, the kinds of bands that enable you to play more variety of cards. I'm always in favor in. Uh,
Yes, I agree.
so that brings
That's
us
why
to
I
the
was in
main
favor of the
event.
Outriders ban.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The main course of the podcast, as it were, the regional. So, what time do we get started? What's the format? How many rounds? What should people expect with this regional?
Well, again, I expect we're gonna get around 24 players. I'd be real surprised if we exceeded 32. I don't think that's gonna happen. So I expect we'll be somewhere in the 20s, which means we'll play 6 rounds of Swiss to a top 8 cut. So we're starting at 11:30 a.m. That's when we want to start, by the way. So people should come to the store at 11. Fill out your deck list, your paperwork. Obviously, if you've played in one of these big events, regional or the championship at Gen Con, you have to fill out the legal document so that Upper Deck can send you a check. So anyway, we'll have all that paperwork on hand. Show up at 11. That's when the store opens. We'll have a half hour to get everybody filled out their paperwork and stuff. And then we should sit down. The goal is to sit down and play the first round at 11:30. We'll see if that works out. I mean, we try to run a tight ship at Epic Loot, but events don't start on time all the time. I mean, at Gen Con, they were running an hour late the first day, I think. It was crazy. So, but we try to run a tight ship, but things always something doesn't go quite right. So, oh, and by the way, we're using the same software that they were using at Gen Con. Upper Deck has developed this new tournament software, so that was part of the problem they had, I guess, in getting the first round was there were glitches with the software, or at least that's what I was told. I don't know. So we'll see. They're getting me a password to use the software soon, so I'll try it before the day of the event. Hopefully, we can make it work. Um, yeah. So start at 11:30. We'll play 6 rounds of Swiss. The top 8 cut. I figure if everything goes smoothly, I mean, we'll probably be there till 8 or 9 p.m. Right? I mean, it's probably going to be all day, but we should finish in time that people can go and get some sleep before Sunday morning. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I mean, if we
Sometimes they
need to
go
stay
real
late,
long.
sometimes I was just going to say, so our store closes at 9 p.m., but I know somebody. We can stay late if we have to.
You may have
I
access
can
to the keys.
I may have the keys to the store, so if necessary, we could stay late. but we're gonna, we'll try and wrap things up by 9 p.m.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what format are players playing in?
Oh, it's incursion, and I mean, I was told that they are making it a priority to update the incursion destroyed list, after Gen Con. I don't have an exact timetable for when that's going to happen. So, I mean, maybe it doesn't happen in time for our event, but I'm I think it will. I think that will get updated pretty soon at this point. It's been what, a week and a half since Gen Con, so give them a little more time. I'm sure they're working on it. But maybe soon we'll have a new incursion list. Um, I would expect this one to be a pretty big destroyed list, right? Because
I hope so.
First of all, yeah, I mean, Gen Con's the biggest event of the year, and it wasn't like one of the recent regionals where there were a small number of people, so they only banned like 2 or 3 cards. I think this one, I mean, if you look at what they banned after the first incursion, right? They banned what, 20 cards, something like that. I mean, granted, 8 of them were one of a kind sentinels, so you could kind of maybe group those as one card. But even so, it was a lot of cards that got banned. I think we're probably looking at, I don't know, something like 8 to 10 banned cards this time. That's just a guess. I don't have any inside information. Total guess. But I think it's going to be pretty significant. As a matter of fact, like I pulled up all the deck lists of what the top players were playing. I mean, I think Mystique is for sure, right?
Yeah, I mean,
That's
you
what
have
Jose
to
was playing.
ban the main character that won the event. Like that card
Yeah,
has to be
exactly.
destroyed. No
Yeah,
question.
and
Um,
and a lot of the stuff he was running is stuff that a lot of people were running. Mutant Control Act was all over the place at Gen Con. Um, what else? Ahab. Um, I don't remember how many people were playing Timbuba. I remember a lot of people talking about putting that in their decks, but I don't remember for sure if a lot of people actually did. Lilith was probably in a lot of decks. Marvel Girl, I think, was in a lot of decks. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we could see getting banned this time. So
I know when
anyway,
I talked
we'll
to
see what happens.
Jose, he specifically talked about Stand Together being all over the place, and that card's kind of out of pocket to begin with. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, there were a lot of people, a lot of the Team Apex guys in particular were playing Loyal Magneto. And they were, I think all but one of them was running it Loyal, so they were running Stand Togethers. I think was it which one was not running it Loyal? I can't remember now. Maybe Vern? Anyway, yeah, all but one of them was running Loyal Magneto, so there were a lot of Stand Togethers. Magneto might also get banned for that matter, because I think 4 or 5 people in the top 8 were running him. And
so it's probably
here's
fair
another
to
thing.
say at this point, if somebody is looking to prepare for the event, you can look at what's been destroyed. Obviously, those cards remain destroyed, and you have
Yeah.
a decent idea of what's likely to be destroyed for this upcoming regional. Although at this
Yeah.
time we don't have any new information.
Exactly. Look at the top 16. I don't know exactly what the formula they use to determine what gets destroyed is. I mean, they've never publicly stated, here's the formula, right?
Yeah.
All we know is that it's got something to do with the decks or the cards that were predominant in the format. So yeah, if you just look at the top 8, they published the top 8 decks from each qualifying day. So for Thursday and Friday. So if you look at those, you can get at least an idea maybe of what's going to be banned. Adam Warlock, I think there's 3 Adam Warlocks, so he might get banned. There's a bunch of Ghost Spiders, so she might get banned. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
It looks like just 3 Magnetos, but still, that's a good number.
Well, that kind of brings me to the end of the outline that I had prepared of all the things that we wanted to hit. Is there anything else about the event, the store, before we go to shout outs at the end of the show? Is there anything else that you want to make sure we touch on? I guess we should mention how
Um,
nice your bathrooms are. I saw a video that called that out specifically. I'll link that video in the show notes too.
okay. Yeah, that's funny. Again, you got to leave it to Keebler. He's the one that comes up with that stuff. Although I will say, I mean, it's funny that he mentioned that, but when we started Epic Loot, that was one of our goals to have nice bathrooms. I mean, that was on our bullet list of, we before we started this, like a year before we opened the store, we started planning. And one of the first things we did was we made a list with all these bullet points of here's what we want. Like, this is our ideal game store. Like, I started this with several of my old college friends, right? And we had been heavy gamers and going to game stores all our lives. And we always were like, man, if we ran a game store, here's what we'd do, right? So when we decided to do it, we were like, okay, let's start with that list of all the things that we would want. And that was in there. We wanted good lighting. We wanted clean, nice bathrooms. We wanted to be a clean, well organized store. We wanted to have lots of inventory. We wanted to have lots of gaming space. I mean, these were all things that were on the agenda. And so I'm glad it makes me happy to see that people recognize those things, right? That we weren't wasting our time trying to keep our bathrooms clean. Uh, yeah, I think it's important. So I'm glad other people do too.
Arguably, your bathrooms are now world renowned because
Yeah,
Obs is from Belgium and he made a comment about how nice the potties were based on that video. So
that's awesome.
come for
Yeah,
the epic loot, stay for the epic bathrooms, I guess.
right. Stay for the epic potties. Anyway, yeah, I don't know what else to say. I mean, I mean, I'm thrilled and excited about this. We were hoping to run some events at Origins back in 2020, and then COVID happened, so that got canceled. Origins always used to have a versus tournament, and then Upper Deck pulled out. I can't remember if they were even there in 2019 or did they pull out in 2019? I don't remember for sure if they were there in 2019, but in any case, in 2020 they weren't going to be there. Upper Deck had said we're not going to have a presence at Origins this year. So because we're in Dayton, it's only an hour drive from Columbus, which is where Origins is. We contacted Upper Deck and we said, hey, would it be all right if we ran versus events there? Because we still wanted to see versus events and we thought, we could run them, and if they would provide prize support and stuff, we could still have versus at Origins. So we were like 80% done with planning that, and then COVID happened. So that all, fell through. But of course, we've been hoping to get a regional ever since then. And I'm thrilled that it's finally happening. I had sort of given up on us getting a regional because we're in the same region as the, Midwinter, obviously, the northern region.
Hmm.
And Midwinter does a great job and it's a great event and it's a lot of fun. And I was like, well, they're never gonna like move that. Why would they move it? Midwinter's great. It has the best attendance of any regional event in the country. Um, so I had sort of written it off, and then last year they were like, we want to start moving the events around, to have different stores host them. And so, I contacted Beats again and I was like, hey, are we still on the short list for places that could host a regional? Because we'd still love to. So yeah, I'm happy that it's happening and we're excited and thrilled, and hopefully we put on a good event and people have a good time. That's what matters, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Well, I think it's really exciting. I like that they're taking the events out of the cons and putting them in the stores. I think that
Yeah.
fits the player base of our game. I think that fits the
Yeah.
sort of marketing strategy of our game a lot better than expecting people to buy a con ticket and enter the event. It's just
Yeah.
the players who
Yeah.
are spending that kind of money on their hobbies are the single dudes who are still playing Magic. Us old men, I want to play in a game
Yeah.
store with a nice bathroom. That's where I'm at in my life.
Yeah, convention centers don't typically have very good bathrooms. Or they
I mean,
do
they
if
might
you
at the
go
start of
there
the day.
I was just gonna say at the opening day of the
Yeah.
day. But after just a couple of hours, after hundreds of people have used those bathrooms, yeah, they get a little nasty.
All right. Well,
Anyway,
here at
I
the end
don't
of the
know why
show, I
we're
want
talking
to
so
give
much
a
about
chance
this.
for you to plug, promote, shout out, and anything else other than the Buckeye guys, because we covered them already.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say we already did all the shout outs I wanted to do. I don't really have anything else to plug. I mean, everybody that's local already knows Epic Loot, and everybody who's coming from out of town. I mean, I hope you find it welcoming. Um, I think you will. That's another one of our goals, to have a welcoming atmosphere. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, we already did that walkthrough tour, or I would say I could turn the camera around and show you the store, but everybody's already seen it. Um, so yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Great. Well,
Come
hey,
come to Ohio and have a good time.
I appreciate you sitting down to talk about the event, and I'm always a fan of a nice little ramble into card game history. Uh, that is right up my alley. I mean, the reason I have this podcast is because I like rambling about card game stuff. So
Oh,
you're an
dude,
excellent
I
guest. That was
could
very fun to have you on the
I could
show.
rap with you. I could rap with you for hours about all kinds of game history stuff. I mean, obviously, if I decided to open a game store, obviously I'm a little obsessive about gaming.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have that obsessive compulsive nature, and I found a way to express it in a job that, it works in.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean,
yeah, I
it's kind of
love
like the
gaming and
best luck in the world to be able to like do what you love and be able to feed yourself and your family doing it. Like that's awesome, man.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, anytime if you wanna rap for 2 hours about whatever esoteric game system, let me know. I'm down.
Cool. Well, that sounds like fun. We'll have to do that sometime.
I do hope you edit this a little bit. I feel like I probably rambled on way too much
I'll
about
have to
things, but
clean it up a
that's
little
up to
here and
you.
there, but overall, I think you're a great guest, man. I really enjoyed having you on the show. This was a lot of fun. We will absolutely
Awesome.
do this
Thanks, man.
again, whether it's versus specific or some other game that we decide we want to talk about.
Cool. Rock on. I'll be there.
All right, man. I think we're going to leave it there. Till next time, go win some games.